I remember looking at my tickets and seeing all these stops and layovers and not knowing where these places were because I'd never gone that far before. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Joy.
I live in the US.
And I live in England.
And we were across the world
on a mission.
So we are back and we are talking about our day of travel. So we've accepted the call. We are heading to Asia and Europe. Our journeys were split up. We were planning to go together, but God had different plan for our lives. So at this present time, I was not with Joy. I was heading to the US from Antigua. I packed my bags. I was getting ready. I was a little nervous. And I would just like to talk to you guys a little bit about my first journey because I went before Joy did. And I went to Taiwan. And when I was going to Taiwan, I literally was 21 years old. And I remember looking at my tickets and seeing all these stops and layovers and not knowing where these places were because I'd never gone that far before. I remember looking at my ticket and seeing Seoul. And I'm like, Seoul? Where's that? And then I'm like, oh, Korea. I have a stop in Korea. I was excited nonetheless because I do enjoy traveling. And so I was super excited about going on that trip. I left Antigua. I ended up, my first stop was in Miami. And I just recall the immigration officer coming up to me while I was, just trying to get through the lines to get out of off the plane. And he asked me for my parents. He looked at me and he thought, you are definitely not 21. You have to be 12. And he said to me, oh, where are your parents? I said, well, I'm traveling alone. And he's like, I don't believe you. Let me see your passport. And he's like, yeah, you really don't look 21. But I pretty much was traveling from Antigua all the way to my first stop, which was going to be in Hawaii, where I would have my orientation. So I sat on the plane. I just remember sitting there. I remember that I did not purchase the ticket. The ticket was bought by the conference, which was the organization that was sending me. And they pretty much booked me a vegetarian meal. And back in those times, sounds a long time ago, guys. It wasn't that long time. But back in those times, buying vegetarian meant salads. It was like, that was it. It was just salad. I literally ate the entire garden from Antigua all the way to Hawaii because every meal was a vegetarian meal and every meal was a lot of greens and a lot of salad. And I'm like, I was feeling hungry by the time I got to Hawaii. But I just remember being on the plane. I remember still being excited. I remember being afraid. I remember just going through all of those things. But I was headed to, and it took maybe about 15 hours just to get from Antigua to Hawaii. What
So,
about
Michelle,
you?
why did you have to go to Hawaii?
Yeah, we did an orientation there, so our first stop was going to be in Hawaii.
Oh, okay, interesting. Um, for me, I actually had a stop in Miami, right? Miami was my stop first, and then I spent a week in Miami before it was my next flight from Miami to Germany. And I must say that flight was really, really exquisite. And I say exquisite because this was my first time on the plane to Frankfurt with what's it called? Lufthansa. Lufthansa was my flight, and it was the most comfortable flight I've ever had in terms of the seating. Anyone who's flown Lufthansa before know that they have this big jumbo jet. I was on the big one with the upstairs and the downstairs. I've never been on a plane that big before. You can hardly feel when it takes off. That's how big it was. I got a window seat, and it was honestly, it was a long flight. Unlike Michelle, I had at the time, I wasn't ordered, they didn't really order a specific meal for me, because at that time I was not vegetarian at that time. But the meals on the plane was really nice. I really enjoyed, you know, the meals that Lufthansa served up to us. I felt like I was traveling first class, even though I wasn't. I was in economy. But the way it felt, first time, being on a flight that comfortable, to be honest with you, that I took from Jamaica to Miami. I think it was Air Jamaica at that time, and it was lovely. That flight too was lovely, but it was just amazing. Then we stopped in Frankfurt for a few hours, because there was a lot of layovers. So we stopped a few hours, and then I had to board again. I had a connecting flight, sorry, from Frankfurt to Budapest, and then from Budapest to the Ukraine, Kiev, Boryspil Airport. I'm telling you, it was
How
honestly,
long
it
was
was
that,
a
Tony?
long, huh?
How long was it? Can you
Okay,
remember?
so I think my
How many
flight was
hours?
in total from Miami to, I think I was traveling for 15 hours by the time I got to Budapest. And then there was another, I think was it an hour 45 minutes or 2 hours 45 minutes, something like that, from Budapest onto the Ukraine at that time. So, it was long, but honestly, I was filled with excitement just by my, just the experience I was having. Mark you, the flight, the Hungarian airline, I didn't like that one at all. From Frankfurt to Budapest, I really didn't enjoy that flight,
You
to be
are
honest.
you are blessed to have that you can remember the airlines. I did
Yes,
not.
I can.
Maybe no. I think I was an American. I think I was an American. Yeah, I think I was an.
Okay, I can remember them because I've traveled Lufthansa before, even after that, because when I used to come back and forth, I used to travel Lufthansa, and it is the best, one of the best airlines in that, back then.
So you
In
felt
my
excitement
experience,
more than fear.
I to be honest with you, I was excited, but I was also, there's a little fear that I had, and I'll share that experience. Um, when I was going to Russia, take you back now to Jamaica, what we saw in Jamaica was, when we mentioned and when we saw Russia on the news, we would see them in their big heavy hats with the long guns, the long coats. You would see people in bread lines and all those things. That's what we used to see, on TV. When they mention Moscow, you see them at the Kremlin, and they're like doing the changing of the guards, a funny march, and all of that. So it was associated with war, guns, bread lines, and all those things. So I remember when I was leaving, when I was telling, or when we were disclosing to our friends at uni where we were going, some of my friends were kind of, "You're going to Russia, they're going to bomb you." Things like that they were saying to me. My
I
mom,
was
she was scared.
literally, I was literally thinking, wow, you are super brave. I mean, like,
Yes, I
I
remember
normally
you.
encourage you to go to Japan with me, but when you said that you would go to the Ukraine, I'm like, I don't know anybody who lives there. I don't know anything about the Ukraine, but we knew that God was leading us. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's, in the back of my mind, I knew that this was something the Lord wanted me to do. And to be honest with you, I didn't really feel, obviously, I'm going to miss my mom. And I guess I didn't feel it much because we were already at uni together with Michelle. And you're away from home. So it's kind of like it was an easy transition, if you like, for me. So I didn't really feel the missing that much because I was already at uni doing it on my
Away
own.
from your mom.
So,
Yeah.
but the fact that I'm leaving Jamaica, I'm leaving the Caribbean to go to, across this world, this far place where, bombs and guns and all of those things. And so, in the back of my mind, with all of those things being said to me, that was kind of, in my belly, if you like. But what was on the surface was the experience I was having, the here and now of actually flying to these different countries as well and seeing somewhere different, because
Yeah.
for me and Michelle, traveling is one of our passions that we share as friends.
I
We
know.
love
I know.
traveling.
I know that I felt a little bit nervous. I felt a little bit, because it's unknown, a little bit of apprehension. I did feel that. But when I was going to Taiwan, I just knew that I felt some sense of, I'm going to see my brother there because my brother was there. He had already been in Taiwan a year, and I was going to be joining him the first time I went to Asia. So going back when you and I were both going in our separate directions, I'd already been to Asia. So I'd already had some experiences in Asia. And so it wasn't like a complete unknown to me. It was more along the lines of, oh, I'm going back to Asia. I know what to expect somewhat. And the first time I didn't know what to expect, but at least I knew my brother was there. So I knew a little piece of home was already there waiting for me. So that's how my emotions were. Second time around, I'm like, I'm excited. I want to go back and to do this. I want to be able to go as God calls me. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. My mind, I cast my mind back to the actual traveling. I was more captivated by, the places I was stopping in and the new cultures and the country. It was like, you're looking around, you're seeing, certain things for the first time. For me, the initial nervousness that I'm supposed to have felt going there, I didn't have it. I must say, I didn't have it. It
That's
was
God
in
right
me, and
there.
it came out, and you'll hear when it when
That's
it
God
comes
right
out.
there.
But it's I was just wow, wow, wow.
And like I said, we're young. So you're like
Yeah,
exploring, you're young, you're exploring the world and it's
yeah.
exciting. And you're on this mission. What lessons have did you learn on on the trip itself? Just getting packed and getting ready to go to the other side of the world, the actual journey.
There was a little thing that happened to me. I don't know if I'd mentioned it to you years back, but I had an issue with my luggage. I remember in those days we used to be able to travel with like 50 kg. Now it's 23 kg. We used to be able to travel with a lot of stuff. And I had two big suitcases that I was traveling with, and they were both overload because obviously I'm traveling with my books. I'm traveling, you're traveling with everything because you don't know what you'll need, right? So you took everything, everything. I was literally packing up Jamaica and putting it all in my suitcase when I was traveling. So when I left Miami, and I had gotten some stuff when I was in Miami because, obviously I'm in Miami and I could get a few bits to take with me. So my baggage was extra heavy, and it was a blessing at the airport. And obviously, we had no money, like Michelle mentioned before. We're university students, we have no extra money, nothing. So, you don't have money to spend on baggage and doing this and whatever. And I remember going up to, where we were booking our bags in, and everything to, passport control, if you like. And when I went up there, I think it was a gentleman who attended me, and he was when I put my bags on the machine, it was very heavy on the scales. It was very heavy. It was overweight, and I remember him saying to me, "What have you got in there?" And I said, "Well, I'm going on a mission to Russia. My end journey, obviously, is in the Ukraine, and I'll be serving there as a missionary. And he's like, really, really, so far, he was so intrigued by it. So the gentleman gave me a pass. He said, since you're going on a mission field, and you need all for this time, we'll give you the go ahead to take those things. And he put heavy, I think he put this elephant, there was an elephant that they had on a tag. I even remember the tag. It was a tag with an elephant, and it had heavy on it. So they knew that it was a heavy bag, because honestly, I could hardly manage the bags, the suitcases that we had. In this instant, even, the lessons, like you're saying, I've learned that when you're doing something for the Lord, there's no limit. He doesn't limit you. And, he will, what we think is going to be, and that's the thing again, we need not to worry. He said that we should not fret ourselves.
The lesson that I learned on my trip was basically that when you are doing God's bidding, he sets you above and before. Because I remember just being on the plane and having my meal served to me before everybody else's meal, just because I had a vegetarian dish. And as a result of having a vegetarian dish, it meant that I had a special meal. And my special meal came before everybody else's meals. And that made me feel special. And, that to me, there's a lesson in when you serve God, he just puts you before and he leads the way. So, when you give God first preference, he's going to take care of you. And that's my lesson learned.
So I've learned, in my experience, even with that bag issue, sometimes the Lord says in the word that we should be like children. And I can see that even in my younger years, that childlike trust that I had, these weren't issues that I was thinking about, extra bag. Now you're traveling and you're thinking about extra bag, this and that. They're going to charge you here. They're going to charge you there. But I saw even in those things how God took care of me. And even though I had extra baggage, didn't have money, he knew that. And he said that unless we become like little children, we will never enter the kingdom of God. Why? Because we won't trust like a child. And I learned, those are some of the lessons I learned, that I need to, trust in the Lord. And for then I did trust in him. Not that I don't now, but for those experiences that I had, going on the mission field, the Lord was showing me step by step how he was the one who was leading the way for me to walk in.
Awesome. So if you are on a journey, you're not sure where to go or how to get there, remember, God says in his word to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. He says that your steps are ordered by the Lord. So don't be afraid. Trust in him. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Joy.
I live in the US.
And I live in England.
And we were across the world
on a mission.